there, book friends, what is up? I'm Addie and this is Books and Tea Time, and today, as per some of your requests on my Instagram page, we are going to be talking about all of the classics that I want to read, or the classics that are highest up on my reading list. I am a lover of classics as a literature dork, a literature nerd, and I feel like there are a lot of really popular classics that I have not gotten to, as well as some classics outside of like Western, British, and American classics, like non-Western classics, that I still have yet to dive into, and this is by no means a comprehensive list. I asked some of you all who follow me on my Instagram page, which I always have linked in the description box, in a poll if you wanted me to talk about my classics TBR, or if you wanted me to give you a list of classics that I really highly recommend, or like my favorite classics. And the classics TBR won. And so if you want to participate in more of those polls in the future, don't forget to follow me on my Instagram. I didn't want to just do a normal kind of TBR video, so what we're actually going to do today is we're going to break all of these classics that I want to read into 3 different categories. The first category is going to be books that I want to read right now. Like, I could pick up any day now, any week now. I have been dying to read them for too long and I just can't wait anymore. Then the second category are ones that are calling to me from my shelf, but that I'm saving for the latter half of the year, or that I'm okay waiting and reading them in a little bit, maybe when the mood calls to me more, but at the moment I'm not in the mood to dive into them yet. And then the last category are ones that I want to read but that I'm probably not going to get to this year, but are going to be my top priority for next year most likely, unless you all convince me to read them before then. So if you really want to see me read any of these books in any of the 3 categories, let me know down below and I'll prioritize them. So let's work from the top down, shall we? I've got a couple different books in each category, but we're gonna start first with category number 1, which is all of the books I want to read right this moment. So first and foremost, I have been meaning to knock this book out for a while, and it is Persuasion by Jane Austen. This is the Broadview Press edition, because I have Broadviews for all 6 of Austen's novels, because I had to read the Broadviews of all of her other novels for a class that I took. This is the only Austen novel that I haven't read, and it is her last novel, and I never had really gotten around to it, but I want to read it because I want to be able to say that I've read all the Austens, and I really want to do a video where I rank all of Austen's books, but I can't do that until I read this one. Wow, this font is super small. What the heck? Okay, so there's that, but I'm excited to read it. I know very little about this. I believe the love story is like they fall in love and then they are separated for a really long time, and it's kind of like a second chance romance kind of a vibe, but I could be wrong. I do really want to read this, and my friend Marissa also wants to read it, so we're probably gonna buddy read it at some point in the next few months, if we both have the time for it. But I would love to pick this up at any moment so that I can finish and have read all of Austen's novels. Then the second book in this first category is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I could have put any Toni Morrison book on this list because I have only read Beloved, and I've read a short story by Morrison actually that I can't remember the name of right now because it was in high school, but I love Morrison's writing, and Beloved is one of my top favorite books. I actually have 2 Morrisons on this list, but the only Morrison in the first category is The Bluest Eye, and this is about a young Black girl who is struggling to accept her beauty because she, I believe, goes to a predominantly white school, and her appearance being different and being mocked and bullied by those kids causes her to have to turn inward and challenge those white standards of beauty, and pushing past that and accepting her own beauty. It says it's a brilliant examination of our obsession with beauty and conformity, which I think is going to be really powerful and interesting, and it's not too long. It's only about 200 pages, so I definitely want to get to this soon. Then we have The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This is actually a library book because I just recently hauled it from the library just on a whim, so this is definitely really high up on my list. 1, because I have to return it to the library, and also because the first sentence of this book is so intriguing. Like, I read the first paragraph and I can't believe how badly I want to read the rest of this book. Like, literally listen to this. It was a queer, sultry summer, the summer they electrocuted the Rosenbergs, and I didn't know what I was doing in New York. I'm stupid about executions. The idea of being electrocuted makes me sick, and that's all there was to read about in the papers. Google-eyed headlines staring at me up every street corner and at the fusty peanut-smelling mouth of every subway. It had nothing to do with me, but I couldn't help wondering what it would be like being burned alive along all along your nerves. I want to read this so bad. I'm probably going to pick this up in the next few days because I don't even really know what it's about. All I know is that is one of the strongest first paragraphs I've ever read in my life. I believe it is about a woman struggling with mental health who descends into a sort of madness. Then we have another book that I want to read exclusively because the first line is so flipping good, and that is The Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. So I've read Henry James before. I read The Turn of the Screw in my freshman year of college, and I really liked it. Super creepy, gothic, ambiguous kind of vibes, but I haven't read any Henry James since then, and I really want to read this again. I have no idea what it's about. I read the synopsis on Goodreads, and it's kind of vague. I think it's about a girl who falls for a really evil, roguish man when her aunt takes her to England. I think she's American, but let me just read you the first sentence of this book. It's not just that it's a really good first sentence and a really intriguing first sentence, but it is so on brand for me. I had to. As soon as I heard this, I was like, I need this book in my life. Are you ready? Open your ears, everybody. Under certain circumstances, there are few hours in life more agreeable than the hour dedicated to the ceremony known as afternoon tea. That is my brand. Tea and books are my brand, and this is a book that talks about the pleasant atmospheric time that is afternoon tea. And while I drink tea at all times of the day, I'm intrigued. This book hooked me, and even if it's terrible, I'm gonna at least give it a 2-star just because of the first line. And that is that, everybody. The last book in the first category of books that I need to pick up now is The Baron in the Trees by Italo Calvino. Again, I read Calvino for a class in the spring semester, my last semester, and I read If on a Winter's Night a Traveler, which was one of the best books I've read for school in a very long time. It was incredible. It's a book, about reading, about the production of books. It's really good if you're a reader, which I'm assuming you are if you're on my booktube channel. So highly recommend that. And this is another book by Calvino about a young boy in the 18th century who decides that he's going to live in the trees. And I love how unique and quirky Italo Calvino's plot of his stories is. So I really do think that it is calling to me. And I love the covers of these books. I love how minimalist they are. They're stunning. Okay, moving right along. We're gonna go now into the second category, which is books that I want to read, but they're not my top priority. They're like middle of the road on the list of all the classics that I want to read, but that doesn't mean that they're not good. Like, all of the classics on this list are really good. It's just because I'm a mood reader and I like atmosphere and I spontaneously pick up books a lot, I just am trying to categorize them according to how I feel that's gonna play out. And I think that is going to make sense in a couple more minutes. But the first book on this list is The Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. I told you there was going to be another Morrison on this list. I don't even know what this one is about either, really. I know and trust that Morrison is going to wow me no matter what it is that I read that she writes, because her writing is just, it's so complex and precise, but also so moving. I actually started this once, I think 2 years ago, but I was listening to the audio and I didn't have the physical. And Toni Morrison is just a book, or is just an author that you need to read first in the physical. And honestly, she's kind of an author that you need to read 2 or 3 times before you understand the book. Like, it's one of those things where like the second time you read the book is really the first time you read it. So I'm willing to be patient and to let Morrison take me on a journey. The next 2 books are books that I think are going to be really good for October and Halloween time, which is another reason why I put them in category number 2, because I'm not going to read them in September. I'm not going to read them in the last few weeks of August, but I am going to read them probably in October, or I'm going to make room for them in October when I do like my spooky themed videos. And the first book on that list is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I actually think that I tried to read this last year and I didn't end up reading it, but I got it pretty cheap at Half Price Books. I still have the sticker on here. Oops. I have heard so many amazing things about Oscar Wilde, and he's Irish, so I feel like a fraud for never having read anything by him before, and I've heard nothing but incredible things about The Picture of Dorian Gray from so many of my friends, so many of my peers at school, so many other booktubers who read classics, so I have to read it. And I've got this really gorgeous edition with like the fancy edges. All I really know is that it's about this guy who really wants to be beautiful forever, so he like sells his soul, and this picture of him ages, but he doesn't age. But I don't really know. All I know is that it's spooky, it's gothic. Same thing goes for Macbeth by Shakespeare. I got this No Fear Shakespeare edition, again, for like $2 at a used book sale. I ideally would have gotten not the No Fear Shakespeare so that I'm not tempted to read the easy side, but I am going to challenge myself and read it. And I want to read Macbeth because it's one of the I haven't read every Shakespeare play by any means, but it's one of the ones I haven't read that I've heard the best things about, if that makes sense. So I've heard a lot of people who read a lot of Shakespeare speak highly of Macbeth, and it's about witches, I think, so perfect for the fall season, and it's pretty short. These next two are not Halloween themed, but they're ones that I want to read, but that I just don't know if I'm going to get to them ASAP. Probably late winter kind of reads, you know? And the first one is The Epic of Gilgamesh. This was actually lent to me by my friend Marissa, so I do have to read it in a timely manner, which is why it's not in the third category, because I do want to give it back to her, but she was so generous to lend this to me. It's in verse, and I'm really into mythology, and just, I want to try it out. I want to read it. I want to get to know this masterpiece of world literature. And then this last one is technically a reread, but I read it so long ago that I feel like it really is going to be a refreshing new way to experience this book, and that is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. I remember really liking it. I don't remember much about it. We're following our main character Okonkwo, who is an Igbo warrior, and this takes place during, I think, the 1800s, in the late 1800s, and it's about local African peoples interacting with the British who are coming to colonize and convert and force their religion and their culture onto the people in Africa. And I love this edition. This red is stunning. All right, the third and final category are books that I want to read, but that realistically I know I'm almost guaranteed not going to read this year. So I have two of them physically and two of them I don't even own yet, but I want to prioritize them, and I do want to read them, and I'm probably going to get them in early next year. First and foremost is this chunker, and I would be lying to you if I didn't say that it's on the lower end of the list because of how thick it is. This book is 1,200 pages. And I read long books. I read Brandon Sanderson. But a classic that is this big, it intimidates me. I'm just going to be honest with you. And that is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. It's so thick, guys. It's so thick and scary. And the font. Are we kidding me? But my dad says it's one of his favorite books of all time. And my dad is picky with his reading. He reads a lot, but he is so stingy with his 5 stars. He's picky, and he tells me that this is one of the best books he's ever read. He really likes this book. I've heard a lot of other people say that they really like this book when I ask them about classics they like or just books that they really recommend, and it's high up there. I don't know. I'm scared, but I'm also intrigued. It's about the French Revolution. It's highly recommended. After that, I want to read the Iliad and the Odyssey. Technically, that's two different things, but I want to read both of them. The problem is I fell for this marketing scheme, and I bought this gorgeous Barnes & Noble edition, but it's not in verse, and I'm almost 100% certain that the Iliad and the Odyssey are in verse, so this must be translated and then put into prose by someone else, and I'm like, do I really want to read that, or do I want to read the real thing? So I might have to buy another copy, and that kind of makes me mad because this one's gorgeous. It's got the gold sprayed edges. The reason that this is kind of lower on my list is because I do want to read it because I love mythology so much. I read the Odyssey in high school, but it's been a really long time. But I've read so many retellings recently. It's too fresh, I think, right now, to the point where I'll be bored. But I do want to read the poetry. The last two on here I don't have physical copies of yet, but I really want to. They're high up on my list. They're both on my bookshop wish list, I think. So yeah, the first one is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Again, I've heard great things about James Baldwin and all of his writing. I'm pretty sure Noelle just read one of Baldwin's books. I don't think it was Giovanni's Room though. I can't remember which one it was, but I want to get into Baldwin. I just want to read more Black classics, especially because I think traditionally when you think of classics, it's been forced upon us that classics are British and American works written by white men and the occasional white woman. So I really want to dive into classics that are a lot more diverse and non-Western classics. So I do really want to read Giovanni's Room, which I believe is a male-male romance. I can't remember when it takes place. I want to say the 20s, but I feel like that's definitely wrong. Last but not least, I want to read Anna Karenina by Tolstoy. I haven't read like any Russian classics at all, and I feel, again, like a fraud. I've always wanted to take Russian literature. There was this Russian fairy tales course that I always tried to get into, and then like I was waitlisted and things like that, but there's no reason why I can't read Russian literature in my free time. So I do want to read that. I have other Russian classics actually on my shelves, but I've been told that Anna K is a good place to start. So that's the end of this video. Comment down below which one of these you really want to see me read, and we'll do that. Let me know what classics you want to read. Let me know how you're doing. Let's check in. Doesn't have to be about books either. Let me know what you're reading, even if it's not a classic. And thanks so much for stopping by my channel. It really means so much that you guys took this time out of your day to watch me babble about old books that I want to read, and I really appreciate it. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if that's your jam. And I'll see you in my next video. Happy reading, happy writing, and happy living. Bye.